Can a civilization survive without an identity? This is a question that Veer Savarkar asked to himself and to the nation in the early 20th century. We were fighting for Swaraj, for independence against British. We were adamant to become self-ruled. But there was a very important question. Who are we? And that is where most of politics was played against us. The nation building project was crippled by this identity crisis. Who were the Indian people? Was a Jain truly a Sanatani? Was a Sikh as Indian as a Hindu? Or was a Sikh a separate identity from Hindu? Should a non believer, an atheist who doesn't believe that God exists but still reveres Veds, be considered a Hindu or not? Could people speaking so many different languages, wearing so many different clothes, eating such different food, coming from so many different regional backgrounds, be absorbed in a singular identity that would suffice everyone? This was the question Savarkar asked to himself. British exploited this problem, this self-doubt. The separatists were able to carve a whole separatist movement in the name of Muslim League out of it. And the nationalist movement, for all its vigor, was running low on unity, low on a pinpointed direction towards freedom. From the cellular jails in Andaman and Nicobar, the voice of Veer Savarkar rises and asks these questions, but doesn't stop at the questions. It starts to answer them to the people. He was a revolutionary who had been tortured beyond all griefs, and yet he did not break, he did not die. No amount of sickness, no amount of torture, no amount of imprisonment, no amount of dark cellular horrors could shake his will, could shake his identity, could shake his understanding of the nation. Using pebbles on the prison walls, he wrote things that changed the understanding of an average Indian about us Indians. A revolutionary who was writing for freedom on the walls. It was changing how Indians understood themselves. This later became the thesis, the book named Hindutva. Who is a Hindu? Today, we dwell into the mind, into the thesis, into the exploration of Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, which changed the understanding of the nation of India, its people, its land, its religion forever. It structured the identity so well that even India's worst enemies can't but respect Savarkar. The historical problem, as Savarkar diagnosed it, was the intellectual failure to grasp the essence of the people. For centuries, people restricted Hindutva only to the people who followed Hinduism. This, he writes, the inevitable consequence of adopting the religious definition alone had been to tear, break up, and confine the Hindus in watertight compartments, leading them to doubt if they were a homogeneous people at all. Think about it. When you think of Hindutva even today, how does the haters of Hindutva define it? They define it by hatred for others, by exclusivism, by the idea of Hindu supremacy. Everything that could correlate Hindus and the idea of Hindutva to some form of extremist identity and extremist ideology. But it was far from it. He did realize if Hindutva remained restrained only to Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, even people who called themselves atheists would totally be excluded out of this identity. At the same time, Hindutva did not mean it was a completely secular or a religious neutral idea. The idea of Hindutva stood upon the lores of Vedas written in Sapta Sindhu that expanded later to Ganga Yamuna and at the end up unto the southernmost tip of India that paved way for the most ancient, most advanced civilization till date. But how did we reach here? Was his question. It was the self fragmentizing identity and attitude, wherein a new sect gradually converting itself into a totally new faith. Savarkar realized that a purely religious definition might not be enough, and thus he gave two important principles, Pitrabhumi and Punyabhumi, which further were sufficed by a mantra that he said, which is quoted from Hindu religious scriptures. A Sindhu Sindhu Yasya Bharat Bhumika Pitrabhu Punya Bhumaschaiva Sa Vai Hindu Riti Smritaha. It meant a Hindu means a person who regards this land of Bharatvarsh from the Indus to the seas as his or her fatherland, as well as his holy land, that is the cradle land of his religion. So, any person who considered Bharat as his Pitrabhumi or fatherland and Punyabhumi, religious land, can be called a Hindu. And this was very smartly done, which completely united and included Sikhs, Jains, and other sects of Hindus who often would like to identify themselves as separate ones. Hindutva provided more than a definition, it provided a continuous grand historical narrative that connected the scattered fragments of local histories into one comprehensive civilizational story. It replaced a fragmented, localized view of the past with a single, unbroken line of national development. Starting from Hindutva, where he completely emphasized on who is a Hindu, what is the history of India, and how did the people of this land become one from the ancient times. He emphasized that India was Hindu way before Christ or the Romans, way before the Chinese Han or any other major civilization. Then he went on to write even further legendary books. Prior to Hindutva, Savarkar had already written the Indian War of Independence of 1857. Yes, the war that completely changed how Indians thought of her relations with the British. Prior to that, the British were holding all the records and writing the stuff. People like Mangal Pandey and Jhansi Ki Rani were not considered freedom fighters. They were considered evil people who wanted to end the empire. But Savarkar changed the narrative. He started the freedom struggle story because he wanted to tell people that it's not the first time we are going to fight for independence against the British. That had already happened in 1857. The War of Indian Independence helped people realize that their ancestors just 2 generations ago had fought against the British for freedom. But now Hindutva had given them a structure of who Hindus were. He further mentions Uttarasamudrasya Himadraschaiva Dakshinam Varsham Tad Bharatam Nam Bharati Yatra Santati. This, written in Hindutva, is taken directly from Vishnu Puran. This perfectly noted what were Indian boundaries. It said everything between the Himalayas and the Indian Ocean was Bharat, and every human who resided in there for generations and had his holy land in the same land was a Hindu, was an Indian. And this unity that had been broken by the British in the prior centuries was very easily gained, and the grand Hindu identity was restructured into one. Further, Savarkar also writes Hindu Padpadshahi. This was his third step. Once the Indian War of Independence had said that we have already fought for the independence. The second, when Hindutva was written, where he sufficed that who Hindus are and what is our identity. And then third, Hindu Padshahi. This was the realization of how just 2 centuries back Maratha Empire had freed India from the clutches of Islamic Mughal emperors, how Maratha Empire had established Hindudom across most of India so that people remember who they were. They were not a ruled race, they were a race who had won against the demons who were controlling them. And once again, the time had come to fight against the British. Hindutva wasn't an ordinary book. Its ideology later was absorbed by many mainstream political parties. This book destroyed many anti Hindu, anti India propagandas. One, the Islamists who wanted Pakistan always said that they were fighting for the grand old Mughal Empire. His understanding of Hindutva completely thrashed a divided Hindu India because the Muslim League used to say that there is no nation like India. It's a fragmented state. It's not a nation at all, it's different people forcefully carved as one. Hindutva helped people remember their grand old glory when they were actually one for eons. Second, British always tried to divide India so very well on her linguistic diversity, on her regional diversity, that it almost worked. But he properly destroyed the propaganda. This did not just help India gain her independence. The idea helped India understand what is her civilizational memory. A civilizational memory so well written in Hindutva, where he tells people that we are not a fragmented or a defeated race. We are a race who always won against foes who came to destroy us. We are people who, even in the worst, did not forget who we are. We are descendants of Chanakya and Samrat Ashok, of Shivaji and Maharana, of the Vedic rishis who carved the nation from the beginning. He helped people remember that how India was woven by Ramayana, how Lord Ram from Ayodhya to Kanyakumari was considered as the god of the people, how Mahabharat included every tiny village of the entire nation of India, how Indian identity is not just about a piece of land, but a civilizational memory that succeeds in every way from every other civilization in time, in culture, in history, in language, in resilience, in valor, in honor. And that Hindutva established how Indian politics is going to behave for the next 200 years. There is a reason left liberals hate Savarkar to the core because they have not been able to win over Hindutva. But Hindutva had successfully changed how Indian politics worked.